Welcome to Evo India and welcome to our quick walk around review and first drive impressions of the new Hyundai Alcazar. Now before I go ahead, make sure you like this video, comment what you think about the new Alcazar and make sure you subscribe to the Evo India channel. Now, what is the Alcazar? The Alcazar is essentially a 7-seat version of the Creta, but Hyundai have done things differently, say compared to what Tata Motors did with the Safari and the Harrier. Here, the platform has been lengthened, so you've got a longer wheelbase, 150 mm longer. The doors are different, the roof is different, the rear end is different, and what's under the hood is different as well. So stay tuned, for in this video we're going to talk about the styling, the interiors, as well as what the driving is like on the Alcazar. Right now from up front, the Alcazar looks very similar to the Creta, but that's because it is completely camouflaged. We've seen it without all this camouflage on it, and what I can tell you is that it has its own distinct identity. The grille, for starters, looks completely different. It's got completely different styling elements in the grille. And another small but significant change is the DRL lighting signature, where the Creta has a single DRL element between the top element and the bottom element. This one has two separating them. It's when you come over to the side that you really notice the big differences between the Creta and the Alcazar. For starters, 18-inch wheels on the top end Alcazar, whereas you get 17s on the Creta. But the big difference is the length. Visually, the Alcazar is much longer than the Creta, and that's all from the B-pillar back. So the rear doors, they're much longer. The overhang is longer. You can see that this big glass section here for airiness in the third row. And you've also got something that you may not notice at first glance, rear disc brakes. Another nicely integrated styling but also functional element is this footstep. So you've got this footstep here which is supposed to aid ingress and egress into the third row. Now let's talk about the rear section. Here the styling is fairly different from the Creta. You've got different looking tail lamps, and once again this is all camouflage, so you won't be able to recognize anything, but I can tell you that there's a chrome strip running from tail lamp to tail lamp over here with Alcazar lettering on it. Below that you've got a 4 skid plate at the bottom, and this petrol variant gets twin exhaust pipes. Okay, now let's just quickly step inside the Alcazar and see what it's like. Okay, so I'm not allowed to show you what the insides of the Alcazar are like, but I can talk about the comfort. Now, up front, I can tell you that the architecture is very similar to the Cretas. What is different is the second row. So you've got the option of a bench, which can seat 3 people, or captain seats, which seats 2. Now, in my opinion, unless you need the 7 seats, go for the captain seats. They're more comfortable, more supportive, and you'll probably like them better. The third row, it seats 2 people, and legroom is cramped, so you can only fit kids in there comfortably. Adults are going to be a squeeze. You do get a separate AC control and a cup holder, so it is a comfortable place to be. You've got a nice large glass window, but it is cramped for adults. Now let me quickly talk you through the engines and what the driving is like. You've got a 2-litre petrol engine, the same engine as the Tucson, but a generation ahead. It makes 7 more horsepower than the Tucson at 157 horsepower and 191 Nm of torque. You've also got a diesel engine, identical to the Creta, 113 bhp and 250 Nm of torque. Both engines, by the way, come with the option of a manual gearbox and a 6-speed automatic torque converter. Now coming to the driving impressions, this 2-litre petrol engine, it is punchy. It feels punchier than the turbo petrol in the Creta, but this is not an enthusiast engine. It doesn't like to rev very freely, and you're not going to be pulling shifts at the red line in every gear. What it instead is focused on is torque delivery and efficiency. So it is an engine that will actually try to give you a comfortable, quiet driving experience. And a quiet driving experience is actually one of the key aspects of the Alcazar, because the sound insulation on the Alcazar has been beefed up over the Creta, and that makes a difference. And even in terms of the dampers, you've now got hydraulic bump stop. So when you're riding over really bad patches, the amount of sound that the suspension transfers into the cabin is much less. It's much more controlled, and it provides a more polished driving experience. Now, in terms of ride and handling, the ride, it feels a little more sophisticated. The damping is a little more sophisticated than the Creta. However, I do feel like they firmed up the rear suspension a little bit to deal with the extra load that would come with 7 people and their luggage. So over really sharp bumps, you do feel a slight kick in the rear, especially when it was unloaded in the way I was driving it. How does it feel with people and passengers? We're going to have to tell you that when we test it fully back in Pune and when we get the car for review. So stay tuned and wait for that. In terms of handling, it actually feels very similar to the Creta despite the longer wheelbase, and it's only when you're really pushing it that you can actually feel its extra length. But this is not a car that you really want to push. It's a car that you want to travel in comfort in. So if you wanted to push and if you wanted an enthusiast car, you'd probably get the Creta with the DCT engine. This is more focused on comfort and offering luxury at this price point. Wraps come off the Hyundai Alcazar at the end of April, and that is when you'll be able to see the production-ready car with everything that it is packing on the inside. We estimate prices to be around a lakh and a half rupees more than each variant of the Creta. So let us know in the comments, what do you think about the Hyundai Alcazar? Does it have what it takes to take on the like of the MG Hector Plus and the Tata Safari? We'd love to hear from you.
Subscribe to the Evo India channel and hit the bell icon to keep pace with the thrill of driving.